In the distant future, the year 3092 marked a new chapter for humankind, one where Earth was no longer isolated in the universe. The Galactic Union, a powerful alliance of alien civilizations, had opened its arms to humanity, welcoming them as a young but clever race. Among these alien empires, none were more feared or respected than the Zakara, a warrior race led by the towering and fierce Queen Zaltrana. She stood 8 feet tall, with deep blue skin that shimmered like armor, claws sharp enough to slice steel, and glowing violet eyes that could silence an entire room. When Queen Zaltrana arrived on Earth for a diplomatic visit, the world held its breath. She wasn't known for kindness, nor did she care much for politics. Her visit was not about peace, it was about curiosity. What were these fragile humans really like? How did they survive, let alone thrive, in a galaxy so brutal? During a tour of a human biology laboratory, Queen Zaltrana found herself in the company of Earth's top scientists. They nervously explained human reproduction, bonding and mating rituals, describing things like romantic love, dating, and emotional connection. The Queen listened in silence, her expression unreadable, until suddenly she laughed. Loud and deep, her voice echoed across the walls like thunder. Hugging, kissing, emotions, she scoffed. You form bonds through eye contact and gentle words? This is your mating? The humans stood frozen. She continued with mocking amusement. On Zakara, we choose mates through combat. No emotion, no softness, only strength survives. Your way is amusing, weak. Her warriors laughed with her. The scientists looked at one another, unsure of how to respond. No one dared to challenge her. No one, except for one young human. At the back of the room, Dr. Eli Grant was a quiet man, known for his brilliant work in xenogenetics, the study of alien DNA. He had observed the Queen carefully, not just her words, but the tension beneath them. As the laughter faded, Eli stepped forward, his voice calm and clear. Maybe it's only funny because it's something you've never tried. The entire room turned to him. For a moment, there was only silence. Queen Zaltrana's eyes locked onto his. Her glowing gaze held him like a blade, and her voice dropped to a low growl. What did you say, human? Eli didn't flinch. I said, maybe you laugh at something you don't understand. The room braced for an explosion, but instead of anger, something strange flickered in the Queen's eyes. Not rage, not mockery. Something unfamiliar. Interest. She studied him, her mind processing this strange, bold creature who dared to speak plainly in her presence. For the first time in decades, Queen Zaltrana found herself truly curious, not about human science or politics, but about this man. Something had shifted. Something deep. And though no one knew it yet, in that quiet moment, a story had begun that would shake the stars. Later that evening, Queen Zaltrana summoned the human who had spoken so boldly in the lab. Dr. Eli Grant entered the Zakara embassy with quiet steps, but his eyes held steady, unshaken even in the presence of the towering queen. The grand hall, where she sat, resembled a throne room forged from obsidian and starlight. Her advisors flanked her sides, armored and silent, their expressions unreadable. From her seat carved into meteor stone, Zaltrana regarded the human with piercing interest. You speak with boldness, Earthborn, she said, her voice like the hum of deep space engines. Explain this mating ritual of yours, this bonding. Eli remained calm under her gaze. He described the human idea of connection, not just physical, but emotional. Shared time, trust, understanding. It's not about strength alone, he said. It's about choice. Two people choosing to be with each other, again and again. The words stirred something inside the Queen, something unspoken. Her kind did not speak of such things. The Zakara believed in power, in combat, in dominance. Mating for them was a matter of biology and rank, not feelings. Yet the human's words scratched at the edges of her belief. Still, she scoffed. Choice is for the weak. Strength determines everything. But she couldn't deny the small flame of curiosity kindling within. Dr. Grant's expression did not waver. He simply offered a smile. Then let this be a test. Not a lecture, but a demonstration. The Queen tilted her head. A test? Eli nodded. A date. A murmur ran through the Zakara guards. The Queen stared at him, stunned, then amused. You dare court me? She asked, half laughing. He held her gaze. I'm offering to show what can't be explained in words. There was silence, long and sharp. Then, a flicker of challenge passed over her regal face. You have one. Solar cycle, she said at last. One rotation of your planet to convince me. The challenge had been accepted, not with swords or energy cannons, but with time, attention, and emotion. It was the first time a human had ever proposed such a thing to a Zakara monarch. More shocking still, it was the first time the monarch had agreed. As Eli left the hall, whispers followed him. Advisors questioned the Queen. Why indulge this foolishness? They asked. But Zaltrana waved them off. He challenged me. Do you expect me to back down? On the surface, her response was pride. But deep within, something else stirred. An ancient instinct, older than any battle she had fought. She didn't quite understand it. Not yet. But she felt it. A pull. A strange warmth that had nothing to do with fire or war. And so, as Earth spun once more toward night, two souls from worlds apart prepared for something neither truly expected. A test of strength, not in body, but in heart. The Queen of Zakara had laughed at human ways. Now she had accepted their challenge, and the galaxy would never be the same again. The following day dawned with golden light spilling across Earth's skies, but for Queen Zaltrana, it felt like entering a different world altogether. Her armored guard stayed behind as she met Dr. Eli Grant at the edge of one of Earth's great floating gardens. Vast platforms that drifted in the sky, filled with blooming trees, glowing flowers, and soft wind chimes powered by solar air. No weapons were in sight, no arenas, just peace. She stepped onto the garden cautiously, her weight making the structure hum beneath her. Eli was already waiting, dressed simply, holding 2 cups of steaming earth beverage, something warm and sweet-smelling. He offered one without a word. She took it, unsure why. What followed was unlike anything she had experienced before. There were no formal rituals, no strategy, no tests of combat. Instead, they walked together under the blossoms, talking. Eli spoke of human emotions like they were forces, just as powerful as gravity or fire. He shared stories of loyalty, of heartbreak, of sacrifice, done not out of duty, but out of love. Queen Zaltrana listened with growing confusion. Her world had no place for such things. Mates on Zakara were selected through strength and status. Feelings were not part of the equation. And yet, as the Earth sun warmed her face and his calm voice flowed beside her, a strange sensation began to rise, a gentle flutter in her chest, unfamiliar and disarming. They spent the day crossing landscapes Eli had chosen carefully. Ancient, ruins where humanity once fought its darkest wars, now silent and green. Deep-sea platforms where whales sang beneath glass floors. And at sunset, they descended into a hidden valley filled with bioluminescent trees that glowed softly in the twilight. The Queen, who had faced beasts in the void of space, who had conquered moons and crushed rebellions, now found herself speechless before the simple glow of nature, and a man who treated her not as a ruler, not as a weapon, but as a person. He made her laugh. Not with flattery or flinching fear, but with truth. He asked about her past, not for strategy, but for understanding. He told no lies. He offered no grand gestures, only presence, attention, stillness. That night, beneath the starlit sky, they stood on a cliff edge overlooking the galaxy's rim. Earth's stars twinkled like a blanket of living light. Queen Zaltrana, wrapped in silence, looked to the sky and asked quietly, "Is this what bonding feels like?" Eli nodded slowly. "That's just the beginning." For a moment, the wind held its breath. She turned to him, her violet eyes searching, her heartbeat echoing strangely. In her own language, Zakara words unspoken for centuries, she whispered, something ancient, a phrase no human had ever heard. And though Eli didn't understand the words, he understood the meaning. A bridge had formed, not of technology or treaty, but of something infinitely older. And Queen Zaltrana, for the first time in her long reign, did not want the night to end. The days that followed moved with a strange rhythm, unlike anything Queen Zaltrana had known. She remained on Earth longer than originally planned, postponing political meetings and galactic briefings with vague excuses her advisors did not dare question. Whispers spread across the Galactic Union, rumors of the fearsome queen spending private time with a human scientist. But in truth, what unfolded between Eli and Zaltrana went beyond gossip or protocol. Their connection deepened quietly, like roots beneath soil. Each evening they met in secret places, a glass observatory atop a snowy peak, a hidden desert lake that mirrored the stars, and once in a zero-gravity chamber where they floated side by side, surrounded by artificial constellations. During these moments, Zaltrana spoke of her childhood on the harsh war moon of Vakar 6, where younglings trained in battle before they could walk. She revealed old scars, not just on her skin, but hidden in her silence. No one had ever asked her to remember those things. No one had ever listened. But Eli did, not to analyze or advise, but to understand. And in return, he told her of Earth's broken past, the slow healing of a world that had nearly destroyed itself, and the people who still believed in rebuilding with kindness, even after war. One evening, while the earth rains fell soft and cold, Zaltrana did something unthinkable. She removed her armor in front of him, not just the battle plating, but the ceremonial layers worn by all Zakara royalty. Beneath it all, she stood as she truly was, tall and powerful, yes, but also vulnerable in her own way. Not a queen, not a warrior, just a being, searching. Eli didn't speak. He simply stepped closer and placed his hand gently over the center of her chest, where the Zakara heart beat in slow, thunderous pulses. Her eyes didn't glow that night. They shimmered. That was when everything changed. From that moment, their closeness became more than a connection. It became a bond. And it did not go unnoticed. A high-ranking Zakara general, one loyal to tradition and strength, arrived suddenly on Earth with a warning. "The queen is losing her edge," he declared. "This human has made her soft." He demanded that she return to Zakara's space at once, to resume her role as leader, as enforcer, as the image of power. But Queen Zaltrana stood tall before him, her voice calm and unshaken. "Power," she said, "is not in how many worlds kneel. It is in choosing to stand beside someone, even when no one else understands." The general left with fury in his eyes. Trouble was coming. The bond they had formed was real, but it was not safe. The queen knew that. And still, as night returned and Eli took her hand once more, she made a silent decision. For the first time in her life, she would not walk away from something just because it was fragile. Even steel could be shaped. Even war-born hearts could feel. Trouble arrived not with a declaration, but with silence that darkened the skies above Earth. A fleet of Zakara warships hovered just beyond the planet's orbital edge, their presence a warning more than a threat. At the center of the fleet, stood the personal dreadnought of High General Vorax, the most unyielding voice of Zakara tradition. To him, Queen Zaltrana's actions were more than rebellion. They were betrayal. No Zakara ruler had ever entertained romance, let alone allowed emotions to cloud judgment. Her delay in returning to the Empire, her closeness with a human, and her recent refusal to authorize a border skirmish had all raised questions. Now, those questions demanded answers. From orbit, Vorax sent a message directly to her private channel. "Return to the throne world immediately," he ordered, "or face a challenge for your crown." It was not a bluff. Zakara law allowed a queen to be challenged if considered unfit for command. Zaltrana, standing atop a quiet mountain range with Earth's winds in her hair, read the message in silence. Her expression didn't shift, but deep inside, a storm began to churn. That night, she met Eli one last time before her departure. They sat beside a small fire, no words spoken at first. The stars above flickered as if unsure how to shine. When she finally spoke, her voice was low, the firelight reflecting in her violet eyes. "I must return," she said. "My people question my strength. I must prove I have not forgotten who I am." Eli's face remained calm, but the tension in his hands gave him away. He nodded, accepting her decision, though his heart felt heavier than ever. "Will you come back?" he asked, barely above a whisper. She looked at him for a long moment before answering. "If I survive the challenge, yes. If I don't, then remember this. You were the only one who ever saw me. Not the armor, not the throne. Just me." Before departing, she did something no one had witnessed in Zakara history. She reached out and pressed her forehead to Eli's, an intimate gesture of soul bonding in her culture, something never offered to a non-Zakara being. Then she left, vanishing into the sky as her transport carried her toward the waiting fleet. The next few days passed in tense silence. News from Zakara space was locked behind military encryption. Earth's leaders remained neutral, unwilling to interfere. But Eli waited, every night returning to the same place on the mountaintop where they had last spoken. Then, on the 7th day, a single message broke through the black silence of space. Not a signal, not a report, just a simple transmission. It showed a throne room, battered but standing. And in the center stood Queen Zaltrana, bloodied yet unbowed, her armor cracked but her crown intact. She had won. But more than that, she had changed. For in her hand, she held not a weapon, but a small crystal token, shaped like a human heart. A message without words. She was coming back. And something inside her had shifted forever. When Queen Zaltrana returned to Earth, the skies themselves seemed to stir with anticipation. Her warship descended not with the roar of conquest, but with a slow, deliberate grace, almost like a bow to the world below. She stepped out onto human soil without her usual escort, without the towering guards or glowing banners of her empire. Her armor remained, but it no longer gleamed with the sharp edge of intimidation. It bore the marks of battle, scratches, dents, traces of the challenge. She had survived. But more than that, it bore a softness in the way she carried it. Eli stood waiting near the landing platform, alone, his eyes fixed on her as she approached. No words passed for a long moment. Then, without ceremony, without royal flair, she stepped forward and placed her hand over his. Not as a queen to a subject, but as one heart recognizing another. In that moment, something deeper than protocol unfolded between them. The galaxy might still whisper, but neither cared. In the days that followed, Earth and Zakara watched closely. The Queen resumed diplomatic meetings, now with Eli quietly present beside her, not as an advisor, not as a representative, but as something undefined yet undeniable. Their bond remained silent in official records, but it echoed in the way her decisions softened, the way her voice carried less command and more clarity. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon and turned the sky a deep orange, Zaltrana wandered into one of Earth's quiet healing temples, a place of reflection used by both humans and alien visitors. Inside, flickering light danced across, walls made of translucent stone, and soft wind chimes sang with the air. She sat alone, feeling a strange weight inside her, not pain, not sorrow, but something more mysterious. A warmth in her core, a flutter that didn't match her usual biology. At first, she ignored it, thinking it an after-effect of battle or atmospheric change. But it didn't pass. And slowly, her senses, sharpened by centuries of war, began to recognize a pattern. Something was growing inside her. Something alive. She left the temple in silence, returning to Eli without alarm, though her mind raced. That night, beneath a dome of stars, she told him what her body had revealed. A child. Their child. Not through artificial bonding or genetic merging, but something natural. Something no one had believed possible between a Zakara and a human. Eli's expression was first stunned, then slowly transformed into something soft and unshakable. He stepped close, placed his palm gently over her stomach, and whispered something she didn't understand, but she felt it. A word of welcome. Not fear, not confusion, just acceptance. For Queen Zaltrana, who had once laughed at the idea of human mating, the moment was surreal. She had been the strongest being in countless systems. She had ended wars with a glance. But now, something tiny and unseen had humbled her in the deepest way possible, and instead of resisting it, she let it grow. The news of Queen Zaltrana's pregnancy did not stay quiet for long. Whispers turned into broadcasts. Across the galaxy, empires, alliances, and independent systems reeled from the revelation. A Zakara queen, pregnant by a human. It shattered. Centuries of belief rewrote ancient biology records and stirred both awe and fury in equal measure. On her homeworld, some called it a miracle, others called it treason. Yet through the storm of opinions, Queen Zaltrana remained unmoved. Her empire had seen her strength. Now it would see her heart. She stood before the Galactic Council with her head high and her voice steady, declaring the Union not as a weakness but as evolution, proof that peace could be born not just in treaties, but in life itself. She spoke not to convince, but to make it known. The child would be protected, loved, raised in both worlds, carrying both fires. There were no debates. Her tone left no room for them. Meanwhile, back on Earth, Eli prepared a quiet place in the mountains, far from politics, far from noise. A home not of wealth or power, but of peace. It was built from earthstone and Zakara alloys, strong and simple. There, the queen visited often, away from her duties, her armor traded for comfort, her voice softened into laughter no soldier had ever heard. Her body changed slowly, and with each shift, a new kind of strength bloomed within her. She had led fleets. She had fought wars. But nothing had prepared her for the way her heart now beat in rhythm with another growing inside her. Each night, Eli read from old Earth books, stories of love and hope and quiet courage. She listened, sometimes closing her eyes, letting the words paint pictures in her mind. A queen of steel, dreaming of lullabies. In the final weeks, the stars above Earth aligned in a rare pattern, one not seen in 1,000 years. Zakara mystics called it the circle of becoming. Humans called it the harmony convergence. It was a sign, they said, not of fate, but of possibility. The birth was not easy. Even with the finest medical minds of two worlds, there were moments of fear, of silence too long. But then, at the break of dawn, the first cry pierced the stillness. Not a roar, not a wail. A sound soft and curious, as if the child was asking a question with its very first breath. Queen Zeltrana held the tiny being close, her eyes filled with tears she never thought her kind could produce. A daughter. Small, fierce, with Eli's warm gaze and her own violet skin. The impossible child. Across the stars, the story spread. Not as scandal, but as legend. Not the end of tradition, but the beginning of something new. And in the quiet mountains, where two worlds had met, Queen Zeltrana smiled for no one but her child. The warrior queen who had once laughed at the idea of love now understood a deeper truth. Some battles are not fought with weapons. Some victories are not won with war. Some are simply held gently in the arms.